Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are here to do the SmackDown recap, which took place on July 25th, 2025, in Cleveland, Ohio. We kick off the show with, as expected, a 10 bell salute with the SmackDown roster and a nice career or life recap of Hulk Hogan. This was always going to be a tricky topic, so let's just get it out of the way here now. Love him or hate him, you can't deny kind of two things. One, he was he was a controversial figure, especially towards the latter part of his career, and you could argue at the beginning too. When he reached that point of stardom. But the other thing you can't argue is the impact he had in this industry, and the commentators very much commentated on that throughout the show. It was very, you could tell they had a one thing they were meant to say, and that one thing was he had a tremendous impact on the roster or on WWE as we see it today. So of course, you can't argue that. That is what it is. So I think that was probably the best and safest approach. But yeah, so that we got that out of the way here, and of course, we can't deny that. I think KP and I are pretty much on the same page when it comes to him, obviously. But KP, feel free to put out anything there I missed here in a bit. We then kick off the actual show. We go from Hogan to Logan. Logan Paul played off that quite nicely on his way to the ring after putting down his hometown on his impulsive TV segment, which is impressive. I don't think we often see even if they are a heel, they tend to get cheered in their hometown. Logan Paul is that exception. He puts down his hometown and doesn't think twice about it. He is then cut off by Jelly Roll, and then they are joined by Randy and Drew. A brawl ensues, and Randy and Jelly Roll stand tall. Yeah, a decent promo here from both guys, being Jelly Roll and Logan Paul. I think, this is just a segment and a match that I think is just meant to be fun, and, I think isn't quite meant for us diehards like KP and myself, but I think it should be a fun contest. I think from what I've heard outside of weekly television, Jelly Roll is 100% committed. So you can, and I think you can kind of see that on the TV. You can see his passion. So I think for what that's worth, I think with the guest here, it's weird to call Logan a guest still, but I think he's still kind of considered to be that. But obviously Jelly Roll is the bigger guest here. I think the match will be a fun SummerSlam bout, but outside of that, I don't have too much more invested in that. We then have a match kind of the opposite of what we had last time with these tag teams. With Charlotte and Raquel. This time we get Alexa Bliss, who is accompanied by Charlotte, who has pom-poms hidden behind her back. You can tell she's very hesitant to bring those out, which is still just weird to see, especially with Charlotte. But she's going up against half of the women's tag team champions in Roxanne Perez, who enters to a remix of her old theme song, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if I like or love that yet, but I'll see if it grows on me. And then no Dom support this time. Obviously, they're on SmackDown and not Raw, but still kind of interesting on that. We then get a victory here from Roxanne Perez, who grabs the ropes for support. So still, your heel tactics to win. And Alexa Bliss got a pretty good bloodied nose here, as seen on the screen, and then see a backstage segment later on where she's got quite a bit of blood on that rag. So I'm not sure if that was the spot between Raquel. She jumped off the top ropes on Raquel. There was a bit of an awkward part there. Raquel had Charlotte, I think, between her legs, and some sort of miscommunication there. But regardless, this was a decent enough match, I think, just kind of furthering that rivalry to come at SummerSlam. We then get Jade Cargill and Chelsea Green match, which again was a very quick, not going to beat around the bush. It was a squash match. I hate to see that with Chelsea, but the segment itself actually started with an interview with Jade Cargill, and then Chelsea Green is interviewed as well, saying that she should have been the queen of the ring, and starts talking smack on Jade. Of course, Jade's still around, so then she comes up behind her and essentially drags Chelsea to the ring and beats her pretty clean. Yeah, not much else to say about that. And then after the match, Jade Cargill is attacked by Secret Harvest's Alba Fire and Piper. And oddly enough, this whole thing was just strange. Oddly enough, then Tiffany Stratton comes down to the ring and fights off Secret Harvest because, that's her challenger, I guess. And then Jade kind of grabs the belt and is reluctant to hand it back to her. Yeah, this this whole segment was a bit weird. I think that's fair to say. KP, this first half of SmackDown, some interesting angles here. What are your thoughts on everything here?
Yeah, certainly an interesting first half of SmackDown. I would agree with that. I think obviously just want to go over the very first segment of the show, and just pay a little bit of respect towards Hulk Hogan. I think you summed it up pretty well with what you've already said. And yeah, no matter whether you like him or dislike him, the effect that he did have on the industry and the business as a whole is obviously, there aren't many people who are quite as polarizing as what he was for the business. So. Yeah, I think a lot of people obviously outright will, reference him as, their inspiration, their idol growing up or whatever, or the reason they got into the business. And yeah, I guess maybe without, what he did and the way that he did everything, back then, maybe we wouldn't have had a lot of the people that we do enjoy today. So yeah, I think, just some respect towards Hulk Hogan and, what he did for the wrestling world, but then, yeah, once SmackDown got to a start, yeah, I think things got off to a little bit of a rough start for me personally. I wasn't particularly interested in this opening segment with Logan Paul and Jelly Roll. I'm not captivated by it yet whatsoever. Um, I found it hilarious that when I think Jelly Roll did a couple of shoulder tackles on Logan Paul, and he sent him onto the canvas, and I think Joe Tess on commentary said like the work in the performance center, and I was just like, he walked into him. Like that's not work in the PC. That's just using his size. He's a big guy. That's literally his bread and butter. He should be doing that. But I just found that really funny. Yeah, I don't know if I'm really ever going to get invested truly in this tag team match for SummerSlam. I think it is beneath Randy and Drew, and honestly beneath Logan as well, because he is very, very good in his own right. So yeah, I don't know. The whole celebrity thing is it's just, it's just not right. Like we saw the whole situations with WrestleMania and how that's come to life this week on social media as well. But yeah, besides that, I think I don't know. It's not doing anything for me this opening bit. I did quite like, I guess, the promo work of Jelly Roll. I will give him that. He's very good on the mic, very confident, very clear with what he's saying, and yeah, he just seems very passionate for it, which is obviously a great thing. But I think there's a reason why there are wrestlers and there are fans, and like us, he is a fan. So I personally am on that side of it. So yeah, I don't know. It's just not captivating me yet. We've got another week still. We'll see what happens in the meantime. Going on to the next contest. This whole dynamic between Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair continuing to grow. I'm quite liking how things are playing off still. Although maybe this was a little bit of their weaker segments, I will say. Roxanne Perez getting a win via that roll up, which I guess is good for Roxy because she hasn't had like the greatest sort of like win loss record since coming out to the main roster. But I suppose when you think about it in this sense, that Alexa Bliss didn't really need the win. Now we're 1-1 going into that tag team championship match at SummerSlam. Yeah, I think it was probably the right call to do that in the end. But yeah, Alexa, that nasty nosebleed for sure. I think she did it on the Twisted Bliss, wasn't it, on the outside to Raquel. But yeah, it was pretty brutal. But yeah, I am really liking the Charlotte and Alexa dynamic, and Charlotte, like we said before, is having so much fun with it, and it's really refreshing to see. But yeah, good with Roxy. We go into SummerSlam now for that rubber match, being for the titles. So I guess that's the big thing there for sure. And then yeah, the Chelsea Green Jade Cargill match. Yeah, I don't know. Not particularly a fan of this one either. Just because obviously how short it was. I think not to discredit the very start of the show, But with that being 15 minutes, and obviously SmackDown going down to 2 hours anyway, recently, you're talking an hour and 45, and then obviously without ads, as well. If you include the ads, you're talking maybe roughly about an hour and 25, hour and 30. Um, Give or take a few minutes here or there. So the time is really short. So this I think this is probably one of the matches that would have been cut down because of that, perhaps. And yeah, I don't know. I think Chelsea does deserve a little bit better than to be squashed by Jade. She is the queen of the ring, though. She's got the women's championship match at SummerSlam, so I kind of get it, and I kind of understand. But yeah, obviously Jade was never going to lose, so that I don't have a problem with that. It's just the quickness and the speed of said match. And then these classic Secret Service attacks at the end of these matches, and ultimately they just get overcome by whoever comes on out next. It's just a running theme, and it's not doing them any favors. They're not looking very strong. Let's put it that way. Tiffany Stratton coming on down to help out her opponent for SummerSlam. Yep, quite interesting. But that face to face at the end, sort of like I guess just like swung things back in the right direction towards the two of them. So yeah, I think they saved a potentially awkward comeback from that. But yeah, I don't know, a little bit more build towards that match at SummerSlam, I guess, is not a bad thing. But yeah, very I don't know, not the greatest half of SmackDown is what I'll say, but there are a couple of good things in there.
So just by definition, obviously, you have quite a bit of segments here. Even with the second match, the second match, Jade Cargill and Tiffany, there was still a promo kind of bit afterwards. But yeah, obviously we're big on Chelsea, and I think WWE probably thinks she's one of those talents now that can lose and not really get hurt by it. And I guess suppose you could argue that. Just hate to see it because she was doing so well as U.S. champion, and then now has essentially come back to the joke character who can't wrestle, which obviously we both know that she's much better than that. And then yeah, the jelly roll bit, a good point you raised there. I think maybe a bit overhyped by commentary, but uh, in addition to hearing Jelly Roll is just super passionate about all of this, I guess Randy and Drew were both super on board about it too. So I think for whatever reason, SummerSlam and WrestleMania is always that big, bring in outside celebrities and whatnot. Obviously, SummerSlam being hosted by Cardi B and all of that as well. But opposite to Travis Scott, Jelly Roll does appear to be much more into it for a mutual relationship, if you will, as opposed to Travis Scott, who felt like he was clearly out there for himself only. So we can at least say that in a positive note. But yeah, getting to the second half of SmackDown here, and you alluded to this as well. I think the time, I think it's just kind of what it is. I think eventually we're going to realize that we have to allocate things a little better in terms of, or extend it back. I don't think they're going to do that, at least for a while, I wouldn't think anyways. But I think that is just something that's going to come with every single SmackDown recap. It's like, hey, this match probably would have been longer, if we had more time, because essentially we got one full, not even really. The last match wasn't a full match either. But let's go ahead and get into the second half of SmackDown. We kick off with yet another promo. This time Cody Rhodes extending his rivalry with John Cena. Of course, John's not here. I believe he's at San Diego Comic-Con doing work for his character as Peacemaker. So, there's always going to be an issue with how busy he is outside of wrestling. But same with the Mania builds. I think if anyone can solo carry a feud, Cody is one of the few that can do it. And this promo was also controversial because he thanks Hulk Hogan, and the crowd was pretty quiet after he said that. Obviously, Cody, being the professional that he is, saw that and quickly moved on and kind of expanded on that, to which the crowd then responded to. Yeah, I think there's very few people that could successfully cut a promo on Hulk Hogan, and I think Cody is one of those few. So a bold move, but I think he did all right, well enough. So Cody comes to the ring and he demands the real Cena, and it was a bit odd in the wording here, but he demanded the hustle, loyalty, and respect from John, and then says, we can beat it out of each other. So, yeah, it's just Cody trying to continue the make sure our attention is still on Cody Cena. I imagine we'll see him next week, but for now, this kind of promo just kind of trying to keep that alive. We then get a promo from the Samoan Werewolf, who is promoting his match against Solo. Gets off his usual catchphrases, but then is interrupted by a returning Miz. If you recall, Jacob is the one that put the Miz on the shelf. Hadn't seen him in quite a while. I forget the exact timing, but it has been a while. Of course, being in Cleveland here, the crowd erupted when they saw him on the screen. So that was a fun moment there. Cuts a really good promo too, as the Miz obviously one of the stronger promos in WWE. Yeah, really cut a great promo here, and invited Jacob to the ring for a match. So great return, questionable decision, and then getting to the actual match, probably not too surprising, but we do end up getting some interference by MFT, and Jimmy pretty much takes care of the Miz. Excuse me, not Jimmy. Jimmy interferes, but Jacob ends up taking care of the Miz pretty quick here, I think, to the surprise of no one. And it should be noted, though, that after all the shenanigans, Jimmy's quickly taken out by MFT, but it legitimately took all four members of MFT to take out Jacob Fatu. So if there's ever doubt in anyone's mind that Jacob is getting that full-on, push, you should be reminded here that he is very much getting pushed to the sky. We then have a backstage segment that sees Zelina getting into Julia's face, but she is cut off by her new correspondent, Kiana James, who haven't seen in quite some time, who basically will serve as the mouthpiece for Julia. I don't know that I love that dynamic, but I will agree that Julia does need a mouthpiece. So for now, that's fine. Zelina quickly dismisses her by calling her a clipboard Karen, and it appears that we are finally getting that rematch next week. I would argue it should be on SummerSlam, but as I mentioned in the past, beggars can't be choosers, so we'll see that next week. And speaking of matches we should have got at SummerSlam, our main event here is Andrade and Rey Fenix getting that title shot against the Wyatt Six. This was a pretty good match until Sister Abigail pulls the ref from the ring, and Ray and Andrade actually appeared that they might win the match, or at least had a good shot at it. Things were definitely moving in their favor. And as soon as the ref is pulled out, they they stop the match, which was interesting. Didn't make a ton of sense. And typically when a ref gets pulled out, that's not interference, I don't think. I guess technically it was by the team they were facing, but anyways, regardless, it does, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. The rest of the teams come out. We get mass chaos of the SmackDown Tag Division, and Nick Aldis comes out, calls it, all right, this is enough. We're gonna have a TLC match for those titles at SummerSlam. So long overdue. It should have been at Mania. I think that's fair. But we are getting it at SummerSlam, and it should be absolute chaos. KP, second half of SmackDown. Lots of talking points here. Cody Rhodes and returning Miz versus Jacob Fatu, and then the absolute chaos that is the SmackDown division. What were your thoughts on the second half?
Yeah, I think SmackDown second half definitely turned things up a little bit more compared to that the first half, breaking things down and going into a bit more detail, obviously with Cody Rhodes starting off here in that second half. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have too much to say about this one. It wasn't necessarily a bad segment. It wasn't necessarily like anything ground shaking, but it was fine. It did what it needed to do. I guess Cody raised a little bit more of the intensity going into their match at SummerSlam between himself and John Cena, saying that it's going to be pretty violent and that he wants the best version of Cena. I'm not sure he's going to get it because at this point Cena is very much set in his ways, and with that seems to be the vibe of this retirement tour. So I'm not sure if Cody's really going to get exactly what he wants from that, or he's just optimistically hoping for the best here. But yeah, I think next week, if I'm right, we'll have Cena on the show as well. So I mean, I hope so anyway. Ahead of that championship match of the following, well, it'll be 2 nights after that. But yeah, regardless of that fact, yeah, we'll see how Cena interacts with Cody next week. But Cody has a lot of this. He has a lot of segments where he has to sort of he has to hype up a match without his opponent being there. I do kind of feel sorry for him because of that. Working with a lot of part timers that he has done, the likes of Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, John Cena. It can be quite difficult to sort of bring that vibe up and keep the interest high. But obviously, being for the WWE Championship, it's always going to be up pretty high. So yeah, we'll have to obviously see what happens next week. But he did what he needed to do, and that's the main thing, right? Yeah, I didn't see the Miz getting in Jacob Fatu's business coming whatsoever. So this is quite interesting. This is quite different. I thought Miz's like a segment backstage with Fatu was really good. I thought it was great. He came in really hot, and he's very very intense with what he was saying, and very very assertive, which I think was a nice change for the Miz, where somebody like Jacob Fatu, he probably wouldn't have spoken to like that, like a good few years ago. He probably would have been quite cowardly with that respect. So, yeah, this is actually quite nice to see. The match itself went exactly how you'd think it would with with everything going down the way it did. But yeah, the MFTs and this building up between Solo and Jacob with a steel cage match for the US title. I really am interested. I'm liking the family matters that are at hand here, and yeah, obviously we've got Jimmy Uso being involved and whatever, and it is a little bit back and forth and stuff. The bloodline carnage, as we are very much aware of. But this match, this match actually sort of helped, sort of build things a little bit more so. So it gave Fatu something else to do rather than solely focusing on just Solo and his guys. Solo could have went one-on-one with, I don't know, JC Mateo or whatever, but Tongaloa, but it was somebody different with the Miz, and I quite liked that. It was a little bit refreshing, and it kept the situation away from them for a couple of brief moments, not the whole thing, because obviously they came down towards the end of the contest, but it was still attention was diverted momentarily, which I quite like, and it's been very much centered around that business for the past few weeks, like tag matches with Jimmy Uso and whatever. So yeah, this was nice. So yeah, looking forward to the match. Can't really fault the way they're going with it at the moment. I'm liking it, to be fair. And then the main event. Yeah, I would agree with you tenfold here. It was a good match up until what happened. The DQ finish, I'm not too convinced by it. We've seen so many people in the past pull out referees during a matchup, and there've been no disqualifications been given. So as to why this happened on this occasion, I don't really know or understand that. But yeah, maybe a little bit of lack of continuity there between the rules of WWE. But no, I am extremely hyped and glad, I guess, really, that we're going to be getting a massive tag team match at SummerSlam. We should have had something like this at WrestleMania. So, only a few months down the line, we're actually going to be getting it. And this time it's a little bit bigger. We've got, 6 tag teams involved here. So, it's going to be absolute chaos. It's going to be carnage. It will probably be match of the weekend. I think I can safely say that right here, right now. But obviously, there's a lot to live up to between this one and the previous one that was held on SmackDown a few months back after WrestleMania. So, obviously, they'll be looking to try and match that. But hey, hopefully they can make it even better. There are so many people involved here. It should be absolute chaos. So I can't wait. It's great, and it was awesome to see Nick Aldis just being completely fed up and making the match official on a big stage such as SummerSlam. So yeah, really really happy with that, and can't wait to see all the madness unfold. There's so many teams there, so it should be crazy. I'm very very hyped. But yeah, definitely a tale of two halves for me. I think the SmackDown second half was quite considerably better than that of the first half. I think just it was literally like a switch just sort of flicked, and they suddenly went, you know what, let's actually put some decent stuff on here. So yeah, I think I'd probably give SmackDown as a whole maybe a 6 out of 10. It was an improvement on last week, and that's saying something because they had arguably less time to work with here. Because of obviously circumstances. No fault of anybody, just making a statement rather than an opinion in that sense. But yeah, I think a 6 out of 10 is pretty fair from my understanding. Some things that I'm just not really vibing with or gelling with, and that's a personal opinion, so fair enough. But then some things which genuinely were high in quality, and some things which were genuinely low in quality. So yeah, what did you think, Nick? As an overall, higher or lower than a 6?
Yeah. And I also forgot to mention Eric Rowan, who absolutely gets made out to be this dominant force after the match ends up getting cut short. So I think he could obviously play a big role at SummerSlam in the chaos that could ensue. But I also love the fact that they brought out what seemingly felt like every member backstage. I think that just made the segment feel that much more chaotic. Felt like there were like a good 20 people out there in addition to the 6 tag team. So it was crowded to say the least. But I think that was effective overall in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, I kind of the same page you're on. I think, this wasn't groundbreaking SmackDown by any means, but it does feel like we're taking a tiny step in the right direction. And, maybe it was saved by this last segment, who knows? But, yeah, as I kind of mentioned earlier, I think it's just going to be a work in progress, trying to figure out what we can do with these smaller, shorter shows. I think I made it apparent that I was a fan of the longer shows. I'd rather have too much time than not enough. And these last few SmackDowns, since we've had the time changes, is exactly why. So, yeah, I give this one a 6.5 out of 10, so just a hair above you. The last couple segments were great, so I think that kind of saved the show. Otherwise, we're probably talking similar territory that we had last week. But yeah, that's our SmackDown recap, and this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We have a few other things coming this week. We are releasing another, If We're Being Honest episode. It's been a while since we've done one of those. We've had lots of ideas to get them out, just hasn't quite worked out. And then, of course, we have our normal Raw, NXT, and SmackDown recap. And then next week is SummerSlam. So we'll have those predictions and reactions videos as well. But until next time, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you then. Take care.